welcome to the program. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. That's the big website everybody's going to. Or you can call 651-775-9194. That's the Healthy Home Hotline. The lovely and talented Sheila will answer that telephone and get you going in the right direction to make your life wonderful, abundant, and full of health and wellness. We talk about the 4 pillars of a healthy home here, and the 4 pillars are, of course, the structure itself. We got to have the ecosystem that's going on inside the house. We got your physical body, and we have your spiritual and emotional well-being, the 4 pillars of a healthy home. If all 4 of those pillars aren't in place, the roof comes tumbling down. Okay, Sheila Walters.
That was my maiden name. Where do I begin? Well, tomorrow is Sunday, so you have the ability to come to the bread making class. So we have a gal.
Still time to register? You got enough room space?
I got a few spots left.
Okay.
It's getting crowded, but I can squeeze you in. So we have a gal who mills her own flour and makes her own bread. So when you do that, you get the 40 enzymes of the 44 that obviously are good for you versus buying bread at a store, even a bakery, that kind of thing, because it
hasn't been bleached out.
Hasn't been bleached. It's not organic, and all that kind of stuff. So she does have samples. So it's $10, and you come in. She's going to teach us why, the ingredients, and
so the flour is organic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then she will have loaves for you to purchase if you want.
Yep.
Okay.
Tasting.
So yes, so it really is tasty. I normally don't eat bread, but now I eat her bread.
Okay.
So that is Sunday, and then if you go to ourhealthyhomes.com and click on the events tab, I have other events coming up, and we are doing a couple of workshops. We find that people understand the need for natural cleaning products, right? Most people don't know that the cleaning products that you're using is like smoking 20 cigarettes a day, and that's the damage it's doing to your lungs. They don't know that how the marketing rules are, and that you can have a label that says green. It isn't, right?
Right.
So
they're referring to the color of the label.
Probably, yes. But there's trade secrets that companies get to hide, so they can still say green, clean, that kind of thing, when it really isn't. So we're always about reading your labels and that kind of thing. So we find that people will buy like the Thieves Laundry detergent or soap and the Thieves Household Cleaner, and the other products, but they really don't know how to dilute them because it's so concentrated. You always say they don't ship water.
Right.
And so they don't know how to dilute them. And it's like, it's easier than making eggs. I mean, come on, people, right? And so we are going to do 2 workshops, one in Eagan and one in St. Michael. So we're trying to cover both sides of the city. If you want something for just you and your friends, just reach out to me. But the workshop will be actually having containers available, you actually doing the mixing, and of course, I'm not the green person in the group, if you know what your colors mean. So we have one girl that's green that's going to be going through and itemizing each thing, and then pricing it out based on how we split it up and so forth. So bless her heart, she's going to break all that down to really show you how inexpensive it is. And we always say you're going to pay for your health now or later, right? So why not learn about it now? So those are a popular workshop that we're going to do. I always reach out to people and ask, what can I do for you? What can I host for you? And so one gal wants me to do a lymphatic drainage workshop. So she said, Sheila, I can go on YouTube and I can watch the videos on dry brushing and all the things. But she just really wants to have like a hands-on. And with that, there's, when you come to the things at the house, there's always little perks, right, that you get, because I like to give, and sometimes he says I give too much. give too much, rein it back. And so with the lymphatic workshop. You're going to get some recipes, some specific bath recipes, and you're going to get some samples and things to take home that you normally wouldn't get on a Zoom or by sitting at home, right? And so check the website again, ourhealthyhomes.com, and click on the events tab. The other thing I wanted to mention is the perfume. So for you listeners that don't know, one of the biggest perfume houses came to Young Living and said, we want to make a truly non-toxic perfume and cologne, and we want to use your essential oils because they know how
pure they
are, right? And so it's been a process, like always, right? So it's a sister company. It's called Wild Notes, WYLD. Just reach out to me. But it's the discovery set, they're calling it, is the samples of the 5. And we as leaders, brand partners, are able to get our hands on that first before it goes to the public. So we've been waiting patiently. And that smelling workshop, if you will, is going to be March 26th.
A smellathon.
Smellathon. Oh,
Okay.
I got to write that down. He's so good with words.
He's clever.
He is clever. And so really my idea of somebody asked me, well, what does that night look like? And the night looks like for me is the moms and the daughters and the grandmas and the aunts, that come to one, be together and have some community and some memories. And I would love to see the 13-year-olds there. I would love to see the 15-year-olds there, like mom and daughter and, that kind of thing.
Experience these fragrances together.
Yes, just to have the experience.
So let me ask you this. Maybe you don't know the answer. Are there masculine fragrances, or is it only for female?
Yes.
Like
there are
lighter.
There's masculine as well. Female cologne, that's just how they.
So you got some like cigar smelling ones, oil smelling ones, grease and oil.
But Keith will soon have the Wild Notes button on my website.
Okay.
And so I will have a quiz for you to take, and it's really, the people that have taken it have said it is really right on to what they like based on the smell. So my discovery set is coming soon, right? Because I was able to order it last week, and one lucky person is going to go home.
Oh my goodness!
With a discovery set. So
in person only, though, right, kids?
Right. In person only. Yep, you got to come to get those benefits. The other fun thing, I don't even know if I told you yet.
Probably not.
It's always nice to
I'll find out when the credit card statement comes.
Confession time when it's public or there's somebody else around, a witness, whatever. So I go to Eagan Arms. It's exclusively Eagan. You can go to the Facebook page. It's a women's networking. We do networking at night.
Meet interesting people.
Yep, very interesting people. And Michelle, yes. And then once a month they do like a ladies' luncheon. And so they recently wanted to focus this year on like women and health and that kind of thing. So I get to speak on You're shocked. So
Did you tell them to allocate extra time?
Well, see, that's the problem is that there's 5 of us and we're just like supposed to give like a highlight of what we want to talk about.
Okay.
And so I am the queen of cleansing. Like cleansing is so important to the body for the physical, for the mental. I mean, we just take on too many toxins and it's affecting our mental health.
Emotional toxins as well as physical.
Which we're going to, talk on that today with our guest. But so that is April 1st. Okay, you can go to exclusively Eagan's Facebook page, and there'll be a link there, and you can register and get your lunch. And there's a panel of 5 of us, and we get, maybe 5 or 7 minutes, but it's to just make people aware of what our topics are, and then to be able to have them reach out to us for more detailed, questions and whatnot. So that is April 1st. That is not an April Fool's joke. It is April 1st. So would love to see you there.
Okay, so we got to head out to break here. When we come back, we're going to talk with Jenita Pace. serious conversation, but I think it's well worth the time. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to show up for the conversation.
Present to win.
But this is, you have to be present to win. So remember, read your labels in the grocery store. If you're not reading the labels, if some people look at you and they think you're nuts, just remember, if they're not reading the labels, they're nuts, because it affects their health and well-being, both on the physical side and the emotional side. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. Buy something from our sponsors, will you, so we can stick around for another week? We'll be right back after these messages. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, 651-775-9194. Hey, go to ourhealthyhomes.com. Check out the events. There's lots of stuff coming up all the time. A solid book of business there, a solid calendar full of stuff. Pick one that works for you and show up at the mansion, and we'll have a good time. Okay, Jenita Pace is here. It's serious conversation. I remember, I got to tell you about a memory I have when I was about 10 years old. I'm walking home from Lincoln School in Winona, Minnesota, where I grew up. And I walk by, I see this ambulance, and the cops are there, lights flashing, all that stuff. And I get to the corner, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? You know, young kid. And just as they roll the guy out on the gurney, head completely red, shot himself, committed suicide.
You never told me that story.
Yeah.
You saw something like that, and you've been holding back?
I've been withholding it.
Wow.
Honey.
That image has never left me my whole life. Wow. I remember that thing. One of those embedded things in among many. And so, you know, it is a serious problem right now throughout the country. So why don't we just start with your story, and so you can just talk about how you got interested in this topic, kind of what your mission is, what your business is, and then we'll just see where it takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going back now 20 some years ago. I was in college, Bible college, and I met my husband, and we were 20, and we were so smart. We got married, because we're old and wise.
Yeah, right.
But we got married, and he was a pastor at a church plant, small church, and we got into ministry, and I was starting my new life as a married person, and suddenly I just really struggled to get out of bed. I was really struggling, and my thoughts weren't quite clear.
And that wasn't you before?
No, it wasn't me, and really struggling to comprehend what I was reading and learning.
Okay.
My job.
Kind of foggy,
and then it was really hard for me to leave the house. And we were working at a church that kind of had a 2-for-1 idea, where you hire the pastor, but you get the wife as well.
Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So everybody was noticing I wasn't there, and I started to feel just hopeless and so down, to the point that I was really struggling to manage my daily life.
So when you look back, is there something unique, or that what was the onset of it?
I look back and I think we had a lot of stress in our life at that point. He was working 2 jobs. I was working. We were in school.
Were you away from family?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We were living away. And then the pressures of being a pastor and a wife.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking to you for spiritual guidance, and you're young and you don't know. And I think all of that pressure just sent me into this deep depression. And before that, I had been a believer that, other people get depressed. I mean, that's for people who are weak and spiritually lost.
Right.
Yep.
And here I was in that position.
A pastor's wife.
A pastor's wife. One of the people that should have the answers.
Right.
Right.
And I remember clearly, like you have that memory, I remember clearly I was doing laundry, and it just occurred to me I would be better off if I wasn't here, because I was holding my husband back, and I was holding my family back. And it was the beginning of a lie that just really took hold like a virus. I mean, it made perfect sense to me in my mind.
Sure.
That I was holding everyone back, and if I didn't exist...
You just need to be out of the way.
People could live a full life. And the people at our church were getting frustrated that I wasn't there, and so more questions were being asked. And so I remember planning my suicide. I remember thinking that this upside-down world, this was the best thing that I was going to do for people.
And it was perfectly logical to you.
To me, yeah. I hear people say suicide is so selfish. What they don't realize is when you're on the other side of it, you actually think you're helping people. I mean, that's how upside down it is.
Yeah, right.
You think you are.
Right.
And so I remember he left for church on Wednesday night, and I stayed behind, and I had everything ready. I'd written a letter, and wouldn't you know, he forgot something, and he came back. Yeah, he came back.
I got the chills.
Yeah, and I could still cry because I remember that moment when he walks in and I'm crying and he's crying and he insisted we have to go to the hospital, and I didn't want to go to the hospital.
Well, so he comes in.
Okay, so what was the modem?
No. So he comes in.
Yeah.
And we're like, where in the part were you that?
Yeah. I was going to overdose, so I had all the pills, and
Okay.
I was just literally about ready to take everything I had gotten, collected, and so I physically fought him because he took me to the hospital. He insisted, and I'm trying to explain to him the reasoning, because in my mind it all made sense,
right?
You know.
And where did you get all the drugs to take?
I'd collected them, and then I had a medical disorder, so I had.
Okay.
You know, unfortunately, I had access to some things, and so
you had a stash.
Yeah, and so. He gets me to the hospital, and I don't know how many listeners have ever gone through that, but being admitted to a psychiatric hospital is just a terrifying experience. I mean,
yes.
And then the nurses were kind. They weren't trying to make it difficult, but, you know, you're searched, and you are separated from your family. You have no contact with them.
Where are you at this?
I'm in South Carolina at this time.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, they take everything away because they're trying to figure out how to help.
Right.
But they let me have my Bible. So... You ever had that where you're just flipping through the Bible, you don't even know what to read, you're just... so I stumbled on Psalm 121.
Okay.
You know, I look to the mountains, where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He does not slumber. He who watches over you, no harm will befall you. I read that over and over every day, just carried it around with me. And I was in the hospital for 10 days. And when I got out, I had voicemails from all kinds of people. I just wanted to hide. I mean, just so much shame. Everyone had heard about it.
Of course.
You know, everybody's talking about, did you hear what happened to Jenita Pace?
Right.
What's wrong with her? You know?
And then your parents, too. I mean,
everybody's shocked. Nobody knows what to think. And I had all these voicemails, but I had one from a professor of mine named Steve Bradley, who said, hey, I woke up in the night. I heard what was happening, and I just felt like I had to read this to you. And he started reading Psalm 121.
Oh, now I got the chills again.
Yeah, and you know, you need those moments, right, to hold on to.
Yes.
And he said, I really want you to meet my wife, and I didn't want to meet anybody. And he said, no, you need to meet her. She was on the mission field. She had depression. She'll get it. And so she came over. Her name was Pat, and small, robust woman, full of energy. And she just started telling me, you know, this is not a spiritual deficit. You know, this is not because you're sinning. And people are giving you all kinds of books to read and spiritual advice.
Right.
And she just, you know, she'd say things like, I know you don't have hope, but I'll carry hope for you.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't read the Bible because I was still foggy, and she would tell me Bible stories, you know. She'd call me in the morning. If I wasn't out of bed, she'd get me out of bed. And so she started mentoring me. Well, we hadn't heard from our church. And the pastor and the elders wanted to come over and see me. And they came over, and I remember, again, never forget it.
Yep.
The pastor sat next to me. The elders were on the other side of the room. They weren't saying anything. And the question started like, well, how are you doing? You know, and I said, I'm okay. And how are you feeling? And then the questions became, you know, what could you have done?
More blaming.
That would have caused this? And what sins do you feel are keeping you from the joy of the Lord? And I suddenly realized this is not a friendly situation.
No.
Yeah, right.
And the men we thought were coming to help us were coming to
pray over you.
Put me on trial, yeah.
Yeah.
And Tim couldn't get them out of the house fast enough. I mean,
bless his heart.
But in that moment, we felt very alone.
Yeah, I bet. You're away from home. You're away from family.
You think your church is the safe people.
Yeah,
And
right.
I've met others that say they thought the church was going to be safe, and it wasn't. And so, so we got them. Pat was furious. She came over, and you know, she explained to me that that's not how God sees this. This isn't spiritual deficit. And she would say God's going to use this. She would tell me that over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe her.
Yeah, nobody.
But you know, I'm 21. My life's over.
Right, right, exactly.
And a few weeks after she started discipling me, I got a phone call from Tim. He was at, you know, and he said Pat had died suddenly.
Oh.
And I was so devastated. I was so angry with God. You took my one person.
Right.
My anchor.
And I decided to go for a walk. I was crying. I took the dog. I went down to our mailbox.
Yeah.
And I opened the mailbox, and there's a card that Pat had sent the day before she passed away.
Wow.
And she was so feisty. And she wrote in it, you know, God will use this and you'll see.
Yep.
And I wanted to write it down so you'd never forget. So I didn't know what that meant,
Right. We never do at the time.
We never do at the time.
No, we never do.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to, I'll figure out why.
Yeah.
Right. All the things.
Exactly. Exactly. But Tim had a counselor of his own, a therapist, and we were trying to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew we had to leave our church. We knew that much. Right. We couldn't stay there. And his therapist said, why don't you move to Jenita's hometown and get her around her family, get her around people that know the real her, know that this isn't her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we did. Tim left the ministry for me for a while.
That's awesome.
And we packed up and we moved to Minnesota, and he got in the mortgage business, ironically enough, and which we know is a stress-free job.
Exactly.
What's the problem there?
Right.
But I started a therapy program, outpatient, and I was learning all of the things, and I thought, I think I want to be a therapist. And I remember my counselor thinking, that's so sweet. That you. I think this.
Pat you on the head.
Really. Yeah. But we go back to how many times it's like, we gotta come back.
All right.
I'll
You'll
come back in.
Don't forget what you're going to hold that.
I better write it down.
Yeah. Talk back. This is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com. Stick around. We'll be right back after these very important messages. OurHealthyHomes.com, 651-775-9194. I bet you $5 that Sheila forgets what she was going to say.
No way.
All right, we'll be right back after these.
500.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Our Healthy Homes, OurHealthyHomes.com, 651-775-9194. That's the Healthy Home hotline. We're talking about the 4 pillars of a healthy home. When we went out to break, Sheila was just going to tell us about her hopscotching story.
Yep. Pay up $5.
All right.
Anyway, so
you must have written it down. Huh?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
It's right here. I didn't write it down. So I was on I'm dealing with a knee thing, so I'm on my way. If you don't know Totally Tan, crazy.
All right.
I wouldn't tan because of tanning and
issues.
All that brings. But Totally Tan, who knew, has like 17 locations, and they have cryo, and they have red light therapy, and they have these red light cocoons, and they have this salt bath and this float pool, and like all these things to help you naturally. So I'm on my way, and I'm talking to my friend, and I said, I really, I'm asking God to like show me, why I have to, I'm dealing with this knee thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I had just had. Dr. Kramer was on the show, so I've just had my 3rd shots yesterday, and she said, Sheila, you're having to go through this so that you can help somebody else and maybe save somebody else from not having a hip surgery or a knee surgery or something like that, because there are other ways with the prolotherapy and the ozone therapy, and I said, I've really been reaching and praying, for the answer to show up, and sometimes we know the reason why and sometimes we don't. And I told her, I said it seems to be like a 10-year cycle. 10 years ago when the body blew up, and went toxic, and now my passion is to help people, just health and cleansing and that kind of thing. So when something happens to us, that's usually what turns us into the super passionate power person on that topic. So it doesn't surprise me that you wanted to now come
this is how it goes.
Exactly, right.
You have a passion because you know what it's like.
Yeah.
And you know what it's like to be there.
Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming, if I had, I want to have coffee with you, and I need to know more, because, you see yourself before you've had something happen.
Yes.
And then you see yourself after.
Yes.
And you realize how your paradigm has changed.
Yes.
I mean, if you talk to your younger self, you wouldn't, I'd love to find college-age Jenita Pace and talk to her about mental health.
Yeah,
right.
Because
well, there is that too.
That was for other people. That was people that were weak and people that were broken, and and I didn't have any big, I didn't have any one moment that I thought, oh, this is really going to derail me. I look back and all these tiny things, but I was in this program, dialectical behavior therapy program. It's an outpatient program. These are great programs, by the way. And I told it was not a Christian program, but I started seeing all of the things that they called Buddhist philosophies were all biblical.
Oh,
sure.
Oh, they, one of them was mindfulness, stay in the moment.
Oh, yes.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Right.
Yeah.
allowing radical acceptance. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and
Right.
you can't control it. I mean, these are all biblical. So I told my therapist, yes, I informed him, I think I want to be a therapist, and he thought that was so sweet, and to hold that energy and keep on the path of healing.
Right.
And I finished the program, and I was working in the schools, and Tim was in the mortgage business, and
What age of kids in schools?
I was working in high schools.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oofda.
high schools, and I really enjoyed it. And then, long story short, Tim lost his mortgage business, and that's a whole other story
Yeah,
itself.
right.
But we were at a point where we had to make some decisions, and we moved to North Carolina, and
Back.
yeah, we were in South Carolina, Minnesota, North Carolina. We
Okay.
kind of do this
Yeah.
flip flop in our country, and I couldn't find a job. It was
Why there?
Tim's from North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And it was
all
like
right, so, okay,
he was
sorry.
pretty broken up about
Okay.
it was a bad business deal. He got cheated.
Okay.
And he said, I just need to go someplace where I
Right.
can heal.
Yeah.
So it was my turn to help.
Good barbecue.
Yeah.
Exactly. There you go. Why not? And he's got a great accent, right?
Yeah,
Back
right.
to
Yeah,
his
he does,
homeland. So I thought, well, I can't. The economy was rough, and I applied to a grad program and became a therapist. But I tucked this story away for a long time because, I was kind of ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Well,
right,
sure,
Of course.
And then I felt like I was moving forward, and now I started working and became a counselor, working with people, and we moved back to Minnesota in 2016. My mom got sick, and I had told this story to a counselor friend of mine named Terry Hands, and she said, "Why don't you share that story? I mean, that's where the power of the gospel is,
Right.
is in our story,
Right.
And, we're called to be God's witnesses, and a witness gets up and just says what they've seen,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what you've seen." And I thought, oh man, what if people judge me? But then I thought, isn't that the power of the gospel? Where we don't have any shame anymore.
Right.
We have no guilt.
Right.
So I came out and shared my story. And it's been amazing to see how so many believers coming out of the woodwork saying, me too. I've had those thoughts, or I'm struggling with those thoughts, or someone I love is
Yeah.
struggling.
Right.
And the church in the past historically has not handled it very well. I think we're getting better, but I think we've had times where pastors meant well. I look at those pastors that came that night; they did not think they were hurting me.
Right.
No.
Right. Yeah.
they were
exactly.
coming in a spirit of
Right.
help.
Yes.
And so, what is it
In
like?
the way they knew how.
In the way they knew how. So, what does it look like to retrain pastors to understand mental illness better? So that's been a passion of mine and Tim's too.
And not necessarily just to understand mental illness better, but to understand relationships and interpersonal relationships better, because that's what I love about evangelical free Christian church, is that the pastors are people with wives and husbands and
Challenges
and kids
right.
and all of that stuff, so that they're walking through the walk with you and experiencing the same things. And it's sometimes there's I can only imagine how stuff's going on in their world too, and that they're hiding from the church because, heaven forbid, anyone think
right.
that their
Right.
marriage
Yes.
isn't perfect and their kids aren't perfect, and all of a sudden the kid's out robbing a liquor store. But it happens, right?
Right.
It happens. I'm curious about that note that you received from Pat, who died the day before, and you get this note in the mail, and that feeling of I would feel like betrayed almost, angry and betrayed.
I'd feel empty.
That, here you feel like God has put this person in your life because he brings everyone in front of you for a reason. And then suddenly it's taken away. It's like, what was that? So that you wouldn't become a crutch? Because, what is, you know what I'm saying? It's like all that goes through your minds. And it's enough for a lot of people just to say, well, what God would do that, so then it's a reason to not believe, which is a challenge for everybody, because that thing can also turn people away and
really question
and do a reversal where all of a sudden you're plunged right back into the darkness and back into the depression, walking back from the mailbox to the house wanting just to crawl into bed, and pull the covers up over your head. So how do you fight that?
I have this I felt like in order for God to be connected with me, I had to find ways to bring him to life for me. And I started looking at metaphors in the Bible of how he presents himself. And one of them being the Holy Spirit. You know, we talk about the Holy Spirit being in our lives. But it was a radical moment. My mom was sick and I was taking care of her and it was really rough. And all of a sudden I realized that, you know, the Spirit lives in each of us.
Mm-hmm.
He comes and resides in our lives. And I think that means that he also feels our pain personally. I mean, I think when we experience things, he experiences it too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that not only was I in pain, but God was in pain. And I was in pain because of what was happening to me, but God was choosing to join with me. And what kind of God does that?
Mm-hmm.
And says, I will experience it too, so I know how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the Spirit is speaking on our behalf, how powerful to have a counselor who is sitting in it too.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, this is what it feels like. I mean, I'm a counselor, but I've never, you know, my clients come in and tell me stories, and I hear them and I feel for them. But I can't imagine what it would be like if I said, I'll do it too, you know?
Yeah, and I'm, you know, sure, like counselors and people get this a lot. Well, you don't understand. You've not been there, you know, but when you have been there, you know, it's so much more relatable for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that they wouldn't feel as alone, or I could see them getting better faster just because of the walk that you have with them.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I look back and I had some great counselors. I had some terrible counselors, you know.
Right. Well,
you think,
right,
oh man.
Right.
But yeah, I do think that you're right. There is a hopefulness when I sit with someone who's just the edge of suicide and nothing's ever going to go right, and I say, oh my gosh, well, I'm a counselor, and I try to kill myself. So
right.
There's no end to what you could come out of this and
right.
be. And so I do think that we become the living examples of hope.
Wow.
Oh, that's quick. Okay, this is Our Healthy Homes. Got to head out and pay some bills right now. Favorite part of the program. Well, pay the bills. This is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com. 651-775-9194. 651-775-9194. Stay tuned. Thanks for sticking around. This is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com. I feel like a fish out of water here with these two yabbering during the breaks. 651-775-9194. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling.
Yes.
Sheila will be happy to get you going in the right direction. We're here with Jenita Pace. Okay, if someone's listening and they have and they need someone to talk to, where can they get a hold of you?
Yes. So I have a website, 3riversmn.com.
3riversmn.com.
Yep, spelled out, 3riversmn.com. And you can reach out there. There's videos. There's links to resources. My passion now is to help people in this mess. Because, and I know what it's like to feel like you're never going to get out. I remember thinking that I'm never getting out. Yep. It felt like I'd fallen into a dark well and broken both of my arms. I thought there's no way out of this. Yeah. And just to tell them, Pat was right. Mm-hmm. You know,
there's a way.
All right, so I have a question for you. So in terms of just general application, I meet with people all the time. I'm a mentor for University of St. Thomas, and I talk to people, and I hear stories sometimes that have nothing to do with their business.
Yeah.
As they start, there's the personal stuff always kind of comes into the business side of things, and I listen to you and I listen to other people, and it's like, what a gift of words that people have to communicate. I don't have that gift, that compassion and that ability to say just the right thing. Sometimes I'm listening at the table next to me in Starbucks, and I'm like, geez, I should get a hold of that guy because he can really talk.
Well, I don't feel like I do either.
So, without you to talk to someone without coming across maybe as superior or judgmental, or how is that a skill developed, or is it, where does that come from?
That's a great question, Keith. Well, I look at prayer was invented by God, and how interesting that He already knows our thoughts, right? So He doesn't need us to talk about it. But then He does such a good job asking questions. God asks really good questions. When Elijah's hiding out, he says, why are you here? He knows, Oh, right. Or, Adam, where are you? Peter, do you love me? I think what's so beautiful is that research now shows that talking is so helpful. It's like taking puzzle pieces out of the box and sprinkling them on the table. And we don't have enough people that are good listeners.
Oh, that's so true.
You know?
Right.
And so
my
encouragement, Keith, is actually, you're on the right track when we all say, you know, I don't know if I have the right words, but man, I have some good questions. And that's where I always encourage people to go. And the interesting thing about therapy is we're trained to more ask questions.
Yeah.
You know, people have all the puzzle pieces, and then we're asking them, what do these pieces mean to you? So God is a model counselor. And so it really takes the pressure off us too, because we're there to ask questions. And then I think it's so powerful that since we carry the Spirit, the fact that we're in the room means that Jesus is in the room, you know, that Jesus is present. And I think that alone I've seen help people, just to not be alone, you know, to sit with someone who's not judgmental.
I've always found that when you think you have learned a skill or something, if you try to teach it to someone else to relay it, you know, immediately, first of all, you realize how many missing pieces there are in that skill set that you thought you had wired in, because you can't fully explain it. And in so doing, then you internalize it, and it becomes better for you. The asking question things is so great. First of all, he who asks the questions controls the conversation, so that you can direct people, you know, and let them empty it out. Would you kind of walk us through that first conversation? First of all, how people get to you. You know, what is it that they come to you instead of the emergency room? And then, or maybe they come from the emergency room to you. That's probably a more typical route. And then what does that first dialogue look like? I mean, is there kind of a template or?
Well, oftentimes the hospital, myself, other counselors, you know, we have some assessments we do because we want to make sure everybody's safe. Yeah. And like going to the hospital, that was the place for me at that time. You know, there's a big difference between wishing you were dead versus actively deciding you don't want to live anymore. I mean, there's some people that they're not looking to end their life, but they don't want to wake up in the morning. They're so tired. And that's a different situation, really. So oftentimes I'm trying to discern, like, is this someone who actively wants to die, or is this someone who just doesn't want to live anymore? There's a difference.
There is a difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference. And then oftentimes it's assessing, you know, what's a part of this darkness for you. You know, for me, it was the pressure of feeling like I had to look like I had it together. And the more I failed at that, the worse I got. The more I failed at looking like I had it together. Right. I mean, I was in this vicious avalanche.
Right.
And so sometimes figuring out what is the walls of that dark well that is just keeping you in it, you know, what kind of things are happening in your mind. It's amazing that we talk to ourselves. Isn't that interesting? So we're having conversations. So I'm always interested. What's the voice in your head telling you, you know?
Because there is one.
There is one. And so oftentimes when I talk to the people that are in these dark places, their thoughts are just so mean to themselves. They're trapped in a box of mean thoughts, and
I am my own worst critic.
Yeah, I think we all are, and you know, there's one of my friends one time, whatever, you know, I do emotional releases and classes and things like that, and you know, she said, Sheila, every night when you go to bed, you say, I forgive myself for no good reason. And you just say it. You just sometimes I need to say it 3 times. Sometimes I need to say it 15 times. I don't know. It's not like anything happened in the day that determines is it 3 times or 15 times. Yeah. It just flows out of me until I'm done with it each night, and then I forgive those that trespassed against me. Right, and then I say, and again, it's the same thing. Sometimes it's a couple of times, and sometimes it's 20 times, right? But there isn't a method to it. Yeah. It's just the load and what I need to get off. But I mean, we truly need to forgive ourselves. Yeah. I believe that 100%.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I grew up in the church, and unfortunately, the gospel, the good news that we can never be good enough, and we have a God who loves us so passionately. He would do the illogical to die for us, and now we live in freedom. I I would like to say that the churches that I grew up in really reinforced that, but oftentimes it would spiral into, now that you're grateful, do something for God.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't realize that that's going back to works theology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now that you're grateful, now get out there and perform to say thank you.
Right.
You better go on a mission trip.
Right, exactly.
As if you're not doing enough, you're not grateful, you know?
Right.
We never talk about the passage that says, you know, those who are forgiven much love much.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like, the more you sin, you're not trying to sin,
right?
But the more you fail, the more you become like Jesus, because the more you love. We don't talk about those things.
No,
you know?
we never do.
We don't talk about how our weaknesses are our strengths. And so helping the gospel come to life, especially for believers that are really depressed, you know.
How many non-believers do you see?
You know, most of the people that find me are believers.
Okay.
But I do have, I would say, maybe 10%.
Okay.
The majority of people that I see come with both in a dark place and oftentimes with some spiritual injuries too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, injured by believers.
And that's got to be so comforting to them, you know, to know where you stand biblically. I mean, I would think it would, right? It would make a difference, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just the old story. When you're walking down a dark alley and you see 4 guys standing in the alley, you know, what's the first thought that comes to your mind? You know, turn around and walk out of the alley. But if there's 4 guys carrying Bibles walking down the alley, what do you do?
Right.
You go and greet them.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you ever have it when people come and you're trying to get to the root of it and they just don't even know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and a lot of times in those first sessions, it's just more about hearing how they're feeling, where they're at. A lot of times, and I had this, they're so afraid to tell anybody how depressed they are and how suicidal that someone's just going to whisk them and take them to the hospital. And they might not be at that point. You know, it might be that I just don't want to live
But there's
anymore.
so much shame and guilt involved in it that they just don't want to articulate it.
Right. Yeah, so to say that in the presence of someone who doesn't panic or freak out, that can be freeing in itself. So,
do you find that when you're in your conversations that there's an epiphany or some kind of revelation where they go, "Oh, that's why now I'm better," or is it a slow and grueling process?
You know, it's slow and grueling, and I think our brains are so much like our body. They mirror each other. Mm-hmm. You know, when you break your leg, you can't keep running. Mm-hmm. You have to stop,
right?
And you have to take time, and you have to take care of it and wrap it. And I think so often we don't understand that our emotional injuries require stopping, resting, getting attentive care. I think they're very mirrored.
Sheila's expert at that.
That's why we're going to be best friends from here on out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Self-care is a lifelong pursuit.
Modalities. I love natural modalities. Right? I do.
And I do see Christians, I don't know what you've experienced with the Christian community, but I see Christian communities when someone's suffering, it's so hard to sit with someone in suffering, so we just want to fix it.
Yeah.
Let's just get him the book, or let's get him better.
Here, read this.
We can't.
We are fix it. Yeah. You know, we are fix it people. Him and I, like something's broken. You know, I fix it. Right.
Yeah.
I hurt
What's
my
the
knee.
Remedy?
Right now, I have to make it better. How do I make it better? I go do this, and I do this, and I do this. You know, and it's protocols, or it's steps, or it's you know.
Okay. Final thoughts.
Yeah. Oh wait.
What advice, if someone's listening and they're struggling, or their family member is struggling, someone they know, what should they do?
Reach out, get help. 988 is the crisis line. My website is threeriversandmen.com. I'd love to get people resources.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Of course.
This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, 651-775-9194. That's the lovely and talented Sheila's cell phone number, no kidding. And she's going to answer the phone and get you going in the right direction. We'll see you next week.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He says I'm sweet as I can be. When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call